Sports and controversies. What a beautiful combination. And this is episode number 487 on the 25th of February 2022. Sports and controversies. What a beautiful combination. The other can't live without the other. None can live without the other. Sports without controversies is like Indian food without masala. Both need the other. If there are no controversies in sports, if things are smooth, everything is perfect, then it feels as if it doesn't feel real. Unless a sports athlete or governing bodies or anyone involved in this, directly involved in this, doesn't say something or initiate an action which can lead to issues and controversies, sports is not fun. Sports is not just winning at that time in the ground. It's beyond that. It's things that happen off camera, things which happen behind the scenes, which affect the events on the ground, which happen in front of a camera, and that's the most important thing. Let's look at some examples. One of the latest examples of sports and controversies in the Indian context is legendary table tennis player Manika Batra and her run-ins with the governing bodies and coaches and allegations of match fixing and this and that. And it has added fuel to the fire. It has added fuel to the much opium like need of the controversy fire. If there were no issues, if Indian athletes were winning gold after gold in various competitions or they were going on to win competitions, then the issues would go under the radar. But once things happen off camera, once an athlete and the coach, athlete and the governing body, or coaches and the governing body have a run in, they butt eggs, then it starts to feel like as if there is something happening because you need the opium called controversy. Otherwise, it's not sports. And then, of course, who should be blamed in this Batra controversy? The thing is that she blamed her coach for trying to have favoritism for another player. It's still not an exact science. It's still not known how things work in that context. But there were issues that she refused the coach's assistant at the Olympics, and then her governing body sent her a notice as to why she was insulting the coach appointed by the governing body, and then things began to escalate. And if it hadn't escalated, then it would have been okay, everything is perfect, the coach and the player are happy, the governing body is saying everything is perfect, we are providing the facilities, and the athletes are happily complying with it, they are winning matches, they are getting the much needed gold, but it doesn't work that way. That's why sports and controversies always work. Whether it's a controversial end to a match, whether it was the whole gimmick surrounding the Novak Djokovic situation where he wasn't allowed inside a country to compete because of certain reasons, and the support for him, and one section not supporting him, the other section supporting him, and then the morality of the issue, whether what he did was right, whether the host country had the right to bar him from playing the tournament. So for me, it didn't make a difference. It doesn't matter. If he doesn't play, it's not the end of tennis. There are millions of players in tennis, and if a Djokovic or a Federer or a Nadal or a Andy Murray or Williams sisters don't compete for whatever reason, whatever issues they have, whether it's off field, on field, injuries, this, that, it doesn't make a difference because we move on. There are other things to care about. Whether what it did was right or wrong, it doesn't matter. And then there comes the question, should we adhere to rules? Well, this adherence to rules is something which is, it's a very tricky situation. If we obey rules, then one section says, no, we should not, we should try and break some rules. If we don't obey rules, the other school of thought says, no, if we don't obey rules, there'll be chaos. There will be no order. We need chaos. And this has been happening for so long, as long as humanity has existed, as long as professions have existed, and as long as certain individuals form governing bodies, make rules, and ask the fellow athletes or fellow individuals to obey the rules, whether it's in schools or at the professional level, at the sporting level, whether it's as simple as wearing a seat belt in your car for your own safety, which most individuals don't understand. We all wear seat belts not to protect ourselves, but to avoid a fine. Half the time, if you've read my book, a special section in that book says we obey rules not because we want to obey rules, but because we want to avoid paying the fine. Fine could be fine in cash or fine in kind. It can work either way. And that's the thing. And then comes the Saha story. Of course, he was dropped from the team, and the coach had certain things to say on his need in the team and age factor and whatever be the thing. As the situation when this individual was threatened by certain individuals, personal messages, how true is that? How concocted is that? Is something we will never know. But it has added fuel to the much opium-like need of the controversy fire. Of course, we look at people as soft-spoken and somebody who is in your face. And we look at the current coach as somebody who is soft-spoken. The thing is, we don't know. Just because they act soft-spoken on the screen, they're not soft-spoken off screen. Of course, this is something which has no concrete, or there is no rule regarding this. What defines a soft-spoken person and what defines a hard person, no one knows and no one will ever know. But controversy, good for certain individuals, certain PED media, they enjoy it. They have pages to fill, school of thoughts, divided opinions on the pseudo media. Everyone wants to weigh in. Okay, this is wrong, this is right, he shouldn't have been treated this way, he's been such an important part of the team, he's been such an important servant for the sport. And that's the term I don't like. We respect them and then we say an important servant. We need to remove the term servant. We should not use that term because it's derogatory. but we use it in such a casual way that this player has been an important, he has provided service. Yeah, he has been a servant to the sport. I never like the term. I'll never like the term. I disagree with it. But if 9 out of 9.9 people use it, it's acceptable. And because it comes in the pseudo media, print media, electronic media, we take it casually because okay, it's there. And we have been accepted with such terms for so long that no one seems to mind. And as the thing goes, and as the coach said, I have a deep respect for Saha and his achievements and contributions to the sport. A conversation with him actually came from that place, from my respect from him. And then, of course, age factor, you're not being a part of the team, you're not the first choice keeper. And that's the difference between hockey and cricket. In hockey, the coach is smart enough to give, if there are two keepers, both keepers get a chance depending on the situation. If a team is winning, then the coach will allow the relatively younger keeper to gain some experience being there in the cauldron. If the match is at such a situation where you need someone who can take control of the goal, the more experienced keeper, so at this point, Steve is only 33. So he's not exactly old in terms of what old means, but he has been playing for so long that he comes in that experience category, and that's the most important thing. But, well, we'll see what happens. And moving on to other things, dumped, discarded, and dropped. Everyone had certain things to say about legends like Vahane, Pujara, and Ishan Sharma, an important cog to the team, but they weren't making runs. They weren't picking up wickets in the case of Ishan. So what happens? The selection committee says we have come to a situation where the camel has broken the straw. We cannot go beyond this. If this player isn't contributing and is causing issues, one doesn't know what the issues are, then they need to go. So what happens? The Apple, Knocker, Borish, and Nave selectors drop legends Vahane, Pujara, Ishan, and we can add Saha to it. Of course, it became a big deal because they weren't making runs, they were getting multiple chances, and there was enough negative campaigning that the Apple, Knocker, Borish, and Nave selectors fell to the pressure of the pseudo media and the print and electronic media, once considered linchpins and now discard because of lack of runs and under constant tried by the pseudo media. They felt it went. And as everyone said, their omission, their being dropped, their being discarded was accepted. And there's nothing you can do to change that situation. Because what had to happen had to happen. And this is how things work. 2 years after belatedly establishing himself in Test, Rohit Sharma has been handed Test captaincy after being chosen to lead in the two home tests against Sri Lanka. Sharma's initiation as Test captain will also mark a transition in the Test team with the axing of Pujara, Rahane following their prolonged lean run. It's all in the mind, not making runs, and doing abstract things like making runs. It's all in the mind. But then that's acceptable. And as the Burish selection committee said, we have spoken to them earlier and told them that for the two tests against Sri Lanka, they won't be considered. Just like Broad and Anderson were also dropped from the team. They have played for the country for so long, so why not? And it is very important for selectors to take care of cricketers when they're going through a rough phase. You can't strike off the name permanently. But then there are a few points. Well, first of all, who are the current selection committee, specifically right now, who are dropping and accepting players or picking up players, they themselves had no pedigree. They themselves were such lean players, means they had no contribution. I don't even know who these people are. I don't want to take names because they don't deserve that kind of respect. They never did, they never will, and they never have. So, of course, the dropping of these individuals, it was going to come. Okay, fine, they didn't make runs, and of course, after a while, the camel broke the straw. There was going to be a certain line which it crossed. They had to go in that direction, but it could have been done smartly. They could have said, you can play the 5-day domestic championship, and then, because this reminds me of what happened 17 years ago, 16 years ago, when a certain individual called Ganguly also had a run-in with the governing body, the coaches, and everyone involved. He was dropped because he himself wasn't making funds. For at least 6-7 months, he wasn't part of the team, and yet he was given a chance, second chance, third chance, whatever you want to call it. And then from 2006, 2008, he played around 25 matches and then eventually ended his career. But let me tell you, if this was Tendulkar or any such player, the selection committee would have never dared to drop someone like Tendulkar, because we know what would have happened. It would have created violence. You can drop Pujara Rahane because they haven't created that kind of atmosphere. They don't run around like other players, and they haven't got the hype people like Tendulkar and Kohli and Rohit Sharma and Pant have got. That's the most important thing. And that's something we need to look at, because it's nothing more than revenge dropping. Four grapes. As the term goes, Angur Khatte hain. It's a very simple situation. The selectors, recalling the fact that they weren't regularly playing for the team, they were also in and out for whatever reasons. So what happens? We are now in this position of power. Let's, to our heart's content, drop this guy, pick up this guy. And let me tell you one more thing. Rohit Sharma has been given the captain for all formats. Good. Maybe he deserves it. But it's a short-term assignment, because in 2005 and 2006, when Ganguly was not part of the team, dropped, discarded, Dravid became the captain. Everyone said, okay. People reacted the same way in which people reacted in this situation. After Kohli said, I'm done with captaincy, as I said, captains come and go. So individuals don't matter, but this is almost like a deja vu. It's a short-term assignment. Dravid was the captain for around 2.5 years before captaincy went to another individual, whoever that is. So it was a short-term captaincy between 2004 and 2007. And then everyone knows the things that happened at the 2007 World Cup. We can discuss it to our heart's content on some other day. But it's a short-term captaincy. It's not going to be forever. And of course, with formats becoming so important and everything in stylos that you are the captain, and terms like white ball and red ball cricket being used without any rhyme or reason. Everyone loves such terms. White ball, red
Steroids.
ball, this, that, blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you, it's a short term thing. And of course, because Rohit Sharma comes across or creates this atmosphere as this nice guy who talks nicely to the pseudo media or the PED media. He talks with them in a very nice manner or a gentleman like manner. He isn't rude. He doesn't argue with them, so everyone likes. And I said it's all about favoritism. If he was foolish, if he was arguing, then that he's not good enough. And we judge people on such minor things and such things that tomorrow, if India doesn't win the 20 over World Championship and consequently the 50 over World Championship, everyone will say, why did we go with a 33, 34-year-old? Why did not we go with a younger guy? And did we not have the right people for the right positions? Or were we not going according to plan? Or was this, or what, the fact that India won 10, 12 matches, did they count? If he wins, greatest captain ever. If he, even if India reaches the finals and they are runners up and they get the silver medal, wow, what an effort. Better than the things that happened in 2021. But there's nothing new about this. There's nothing special about this. Of course, let me tell you, even if India has won 10, 20 over matches in a row, which is good, no one is putting them on the favorites pedestal right now. Of course, our neighboring country, the defending champions or runners up, and the teams which made it to the semi-finals are in that category. Rest of them, if they do it, good enough. If they don't, that's it. But this whole dropping and chopping of players, nothing more than revenge dropping, because when you have nothing to lose, when you are in that position of power, you know that you only have a certain amount of time. You fully tend to abuse that situation, because that's what everyone wants to do. Abuse the situation, because I'm in the seat of power. I'll pick up whoever I want. I'll drop whoever I want on frivolous grounds like not making runs or not being the image that we want from the players, and that's how it is. And then we come to the coach. The current coach is considered to be a polyhistor, or most coaches are considered to be polyhistor. And once, of course, the Dravid Rohit combination was seen as a transition, a new phase. It happens every time. Whenever there's a new captain and subsequently a new coach, wow, new captain, new coach, new era, this era, that era. We keep on listening to this. I don't really think it works, but we accept this. But he's, he was considered to do something different, but he has fallen to a cliched role, coaching role, disguising it as taking tough decisions, clarifying roles, and then you hear the same thing. Yes, I have sat down with the players. I have discussed with them the roles that they're expected to perform. The captain said the same thing. The coach said the same thing. So what's new in that? What new have they done? Okay, certain players are not part of the team, and certain players have been told that you are done. You go for retirement, straight as an arrow kind of a situation. So how is that different from the guy who retired just before him, his predecessor, just because he smiles on the ground or he speaks in a very gentleman-like or a very noble-like manner to individuals? It doesn't change what the coach is supposed to do. The coach is once again a passive stakeholder. Once a match begins, the coach is, well, the coach may as well go to sleep, because the coach cannot do anything unlike other sports. And remember, this guy, according to considered to do something special, taking tough decisions, taking unpopular decisions. What is popular and what is unpopular in this context, we can keep debating on that for the rest of our lives. He has fallen to a cliched coaching role, disguising it as taking tough decisions, clarifying rules, and other things which a coach is anyways supposed to do. But moving on to something which was unexpected, that was the fifth ODI of the women's division match. It's a fifth ODI. India went on to beat New Zealand, but this happens when a team has lost the entire series. They were 4-0 down. They tried everything, every permutation, every combination, batting first, bowling first, chasing, defending, this, that. Things didn't work. So they got some players into the team. They got the senior players. They took out some players, and the captain said, "This is the best 11 I will go with." That's exactly what happened. And then maybe New Zealand ran out of gas, or maybe India said, "We have nothing to lose. Let's go all out in this final match. Let's go with the best 11, whatever that means." I leave it to the listeners to decide whatever the best 11 or it means. But this is not happening for the first time. Whenever a team loses the tournament, the final match, dead rubber, inconsequential match, and what happens? You go on to win. Eventually, New Zealand won the series 4-0, but this may infuse a new life. One doesn't know what will happen in the World Cup, what kind of plans will they come up with. It was a good chase, but I think it was more on the side that New Zealand ran out of gas. They need to refuel before the World Cup. India had enough gas in the tank left to perform in this manner and win this particular tournament or this particular match, and that's exactly what happened. So, how will that momentum play into the World Cup? We don't know, but who should play, who should not play, it's very difficult. And that's something even I can't come to a decision. Who should play, who should not play, what are the best 11 players to step into the field, who should open with whom. That's something that is best left to the coach and the captain, and it's almost like a gamble. Okay, you play, you won't play. If we pick you up, we may win. You may provide that much needed momentum. Let's leave it to the discretion of the coach and the captain. But winning this match, to see that it was something different, but simply because New Zealand ran out of momentum and gas. But the T20 men's division, it had the same old story. India batting first, making around 200. New set of players, fringe players getting a chance. Well, at this time, the only fringe individuals are the selection committee because they were the most fringe players to play. The selection committee is lucky enough to pick and choose because I would have done a better job as a selector, even if I have no experience playing the sport. But that's the most important thing. Winning this match, and of course, you can have pity for Sri Lanka. They flew 18 hours from Australia to India. They hardly had any time to recuperate, and then a day's break, and then they had to play, of course. But then you blame the governing bodies for such a schedule. How in the world do you have three matches in the space of 3 days? The only break being today, you have two matches tomorrow and on Sunday without a break, with only travel for today. So the players, after winning tomorrow, they must have immediately left for the airport or for the whatever. If you go by bus or something, you will never be able to reach Dharamshala. That too from Lucknow or any other place. You have to take some kind of a flight or some arrangement, and then hardly any time to recuperate and things like that. And I've been to the Dharamshala ground. People call it picturesque, but I've seen the New Zealand ground, and that is what is picturesque. No stands, no concrete structures, just grass banks with an airport on the one end of the ground, and that's what we call a picturesque ground. Small town, beautiful ground. Dharamshala is a good ground, but you cannot compare it to the ground in New Zealand. because they are what we call a classical ground. But there's nothing new in India winning. You never know. Sri Lanka may win the next two matches, make it 2-1. Who are the 17, 18 people who will eventually pack their bag for Australia? We don't know. Will these performances make a difference eventually? We will have to leave it to the fringe selectors to decide, but that's the way things work. And it was a decent match. And once you made 200, you were never going to not defend the score. So this ends episode number 487 on the 25th of February 2022. I will be back with episode number 488 on the 28th of February 2022. So stay tuned. And what should you do while you wait for the next episode? With the weekend coming, put these must-read legendary books in your must-read books column. Once again, put these must-read legendary books in your must-read books column.